that. Okay, cool. Oh, well, good morning, everyone, and it's great to be here. Got here yesterday and really enjoyed the afternoon session. Just listening to all of the things that are happening in your country and in your industry and in your businesses. And so a lot of what I'm going to talk about today, I'm sure will resonate with much of you. But yeah, for me here today, talking a little bit about our business. So last year, one of my colleagues, Ryan Cosgrove, our business development manager, came to Tasmania and he spoke to you about our journey. And so it was sort of fitting 12 months on that I came back and told you a little bit more about what we've been doing in the last 12 months. So Ryan talked about that. He talked about the journey in Tasmania, and that, and gave a little bit of the history of how our journey began. So for those of you that weren't here last year, I represent our family business, second generation. My parents, pictured up there, Greg and Glennis, they founded our business 40 odd years ago. My dad started as a hay baling contractor, cutting small bales of hay. So for us, very much, our journey began in the fields. It then progressed through to machinery in the early 90s. In the mid 90s, I joined the business in our seed processing business that we bought, and have been involved in the business since that time. We got involved in animal nutrition, back into seeds businesses, and continue to grow our business across New Zealand. And what a real growth for us was in 2014 when we bought Elders New Zealand off Elders Australia. So that got us into the livestock industry, but also into the wool industry and then into the textiles industry. So out of that acquisition, we ended up purchasing the last sort of standing wool yarn spinning mill in New Zealand. And so we're the only independent wool spinner outside the major carpet brands. And so we spin crossbred wool into yarns that go into the carpet industry, particularly in Australia. So we have a lot of customers here in Australia, but also into the US, where we make yarns for a lot of the private aviation, boats, and high-end retail and residential. And so it wasn't until 2018 we got to meet Hemp New Zealand, and so founded by Dave Jordan. So I'm sure a number of you will know Dave. He's been a pioneer for hemp in New Zealand. His business got new investors in, the Draper family and friends, and they really set about wanting to think about creating a food and fibre strategy. So we met them through our machinery business in 2018. We were looking at how we really diversify our yarn textiles plant, and they were talking about their vision of building a fibre plant in New Zealand. And when we met, it was sort of like this connection. Look, this is a great diversification from wool. This is a great thing to add. And with Carr fields, you'll see up here in our structure, we had a lot of the ingredients that actually enabled us to build this supply chain together. So Ryan last year talked about the hemp hot zone. And so really with our background over 40 years in farm machinery, contracting, seeds business, then in wool and wool processing, we had a lot of the ingredients that actually enabled the hemp value vertical supply chain to come together. So 2018 we began, and as I said, Hemp New Zealand, founded by Dave Jordan, now one of the larger hemp food, oil and protein businesses in New Zealand. They came together and invested in our business, New Zealand Natural Fibres. And so together over the last 5 years, we've been really building out this value chain, starting with genetics and then processing, etc. And I'll talk more about that as we go on. So really, when we started the journey, we started to think about, firstly, we know we need to grow. Firstly, we know we need to be able to harvest. Secondly, we needed to invest in a decortication plant. And so in 2019, we ordered a large-scale decortication plant, which arrived right at the start of, during COVID. So with no one being able to get into New Zealand and out of New Zealand, we had 2 years where we had a lot of time to experiment and learn that just putting a bale in the front end of a decorticator doesn't actually mean you get out the other end what you really want. So what we really focused on with that is trying to optimize that and starting to learn around a lot of the challenges, and I'll talk through some of those through the presentation. But we really started to focus on what I call the sort of bread and butter products, like how do we get product through the mill and then start to generate revenue from like the herd and or the fibre. So our sort of journey Ryan talked to was our foundational products we started with being sort of herd, insulation, geotextiles, and then working through a eco-friendly sort of degumming process, which then takes us into more higher value opportunities for fibre. So yarns, biocomposites, etc., etc. So our sort of strategic plan sort of starts with the foundation products and then moves forward through to those more complex products that take a lot more time and a lot more knowledge to be able to get to. So 12 months on, what have we done? It's been a really busy 12 months for us since the Ryan spoke in Tasmania. And that for us has been really starting to lay down the foundations. So we feel we've made a lot of progress over the last 4 years. But now it was like, if we're going to be really serious about this business, we really need to go back to think about our brand, think about our purpose, think about our team, think about our partnership, think about capital and all those sorts of things. And so we're pleased to, sort of launch a new brand for our business, which is Rubisco, and really focused on, the sustainable materials company. And what we're trying to talk to a lot of people about when we're talking about our products now versus current products in the market is, making that switch from what we use today to future materials that we need for tomorrow. And so our brand is all about, what we growing up to, draw down the carbon and creating that fix. And so you can sort of see where our whole new brand purposing with, the purpose really to inspire that shift, to inspire that change for a better way of life, for a better way of living. And then, our vision being farmers and being farming being core to who we are as a family, actually for farmers to be the solution and not the problem, right? I don't know about Australia, but in New Zealand, farmers are getting pointed a lot around, methane and carbon and all those sorts of things. And the solution right now in New Zealand is to plant pine trees, to take good, productive land out of the system, plant pine trees, rather than to think about alternatives. So for us, we're really focused on how do we have farming at the core and how do we actually have farming be the solution, not the problem. A lot of what we've also been doing is talking to people about why hemp. And I don't need to go through the whole slide. You can look at that at a later time. But every time we go and talk to someone, about making the switch, making the change, the question is why. And so a lot of the last 12 months for us has been working through why is hemp a future material that they need to consider? And for us also, like developing our model, how can we create credibility on the ground with farmers, and how can we create credibility in the market with customers who wish to buy the product? So for us, defining our model around growing those ingredients or those products, bringing them into the factory, creating good ingredients that then can go into key areas of people's lives. So taking a real sort of systems approach where we can go in, and we heard about this yesterday, provide the seed, provide the know-how how to grow, come in with our contracting business and cut it at the right time, ensure we go through a proper reading process, bale the products, deliver it to the factory, and then create these ingredients which can go into products. And for us in New Zealand, we can't build a business model on just producing herd or fibre and selling it to someone else to do something with. Because for us, our land price, our grower expectation is very high. So we have to try and get as far down the value chain as we can to be able to pay a grower what they need to be sustainable and to be competitive. So for us, we've really focused on those sort of 4 areas, lifestyle, living interiors, and obviously living environments, homes, etc. And then obviously with Hemp New Zealand being a fellow shareholder, the opportunity for the food side of things to roll in down the track. But at the moment, Rubisco is very much focused on the fibre side, and in the future, food may be part of it, but both businesses have a lot of focus to do in their core areas. So how that really looks is taking that full sort of systems approach, right from seeds, creating the herd, creating the fibre, because we have a wool business and we use wool and we have wool spinning and wool equipment, how do we integrate hemp into wool? Because it's a great first step, right? It's a great first step, and with knowledge and know-how, how to create products that customers are wanting. Through to creating those yarn systems, creating maybe yarns that can be used in some biocomposite sort of fabrics, and then obviously into the building products segment. So for us, again, huge amount of work going into research, seed genetics. We feel now we've done a lot of work in that area, and we feel comfortable, and we feel like we've made a lot of headway in that area. But for us, it's now about further developing the products business, which I'll talk about. So yeah, a lot of work going on in trialing new genetics, but also looking at what does hemp do to the field, how does it fit into the farmer's rotation, and all those sorts of things. Growing and harvesting, again, we feel we're not perfect, we're not 100% there yet, but we're cutting the hemp fine. Our biggest challenge and one of the biggest challenges that I've seen across the world in the last few years is not necessarily the growing and the harvesting, but it's the retting, and we talked about that yesterday, right? And one of the big challenges we've got, particularly with where we grow hemp, is that one season is not the same. And so the real issue, and one of the biggest issues that I feel that is out there, is retting and getting a consistent product that we can use every day into the factory. And I'll talk about it being, you can order a machine off the shelf, but one size does not fit all, and one season will not be the same. So for us, a lot of work we're putting our research activities into now is actually retting. How can we manipulate? How can we speed up? How can we ensure we get this consistent retting approach so that when it goes into the factory, we can create really good ingredients? And then those ingredients can go into products. So for us, that's a lot of where our research focus is right now, and how we go about that. Processing plant, so some of you would have heard last year we installed a Tatham line back in 2020, and as I said, we had to do a lot of our own innovation to the plant to deal with the material that was coming off, because it's not until you put a product into a machine you realise then actually where are the bottlenecks, where are the issues? Could we done a better job in the field? Could we put something in front of the machine that does a better job in the first stage of the decortication process? And so for us, we've taken a baseline Tatham machine, and we are now adding to that. We've built a final cleaning line that's getting fibre purity sort of 95 to 97%. Still not good enough, but a lot of that will come down to retting and other things. And so the line is running. It's, as I said, we've still got challenges, but it's working. We're getting product out, and we're getting better every day in how we go. So we'll talk about some of that moving on. The other key thing we've been doing is really starting to build capability in our business, right? Because like any business, when you're going to something new, you're driving it really hard yourself, but then you get to a point, actually, you need to invest in people. You need to invest into research capability, technical people, leadership, all those sorts of things. And so over the last 12 months, we've been really building out our team, not only our team in the business, but also the team around the board table. So we've brought together a world-class board that sits behind this, people in sustainability, people in global agribusiness, and so really proud of the board and the team that we have on place, and our new CEO, Guy, who's just joined us, who will really lead forward the strategy. The other thing I've been doing a lot of is doing a lot of travel. So since the board has opened, I've probably spent circa 12 weeks abroad, on and off, around the world, connecting with a number of people, both from research organisations, both from other hemp companies, product companies, etc., etc. So a huge amount of work going that. And what I'm starting to develop now, or we're wanting to drive, is this sort of global hemp alliance, right? Because we need to learn quickly, and I'll talk about it in my summary slide. We have one harvest a year, so we need to we need to learn. And someone said the other day about learning from mistakes, right? We don't want people to go through some of the pain we've gone through. But also, if we want an industry to switch and an industry to change, in the world, we need to be able to pull global supply from various parts, from Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere, because the big brands that want to change need to ensure that they can get product tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, because they're not going to make that investment in their plant if they can't. And so we now got around four people or 4 companies that are part of our sort of Global Hemp Alliance, where we're really wanting more to come on board, so that we can share. We're not playing in each other's sandpits, but we can share knowledge, we can share resources, we can get together once or twice a year to really advance this on a global scale. And so last year, you would have had the German group come through. I was quite behind a lot of that in New Zealand, bringing them to New Zealand. I'm working a lot with those people in the hemp industry, and that's been a great platform to really build off some of the innovation where we need to go. So there's just some pictures up there actually of the work we're doing, both from spinning, from our carpet customers, from research, etc. Yarn systems, so we're making good progress here. So as I said, we spin 100% wool right now. We've just in the process of commissioning our first hemp wool yarn for the carpet industry. So it'll be a 70% wool, 30% hemp at the moment carpet yarn. And that carpet yarn will be able to go into companies here in Australia that tough the carpets into sort of luxury carpets. And so we're getting quite a lot of excitement from that, from our carpet customers, because, as I said, they're wanting something different. They're also wanting the sustainable story, and linking that with wool and actually getting a much lower carbon footprint product. They're really of interest for them moving forward.
Chris, you're talking about the large carpet manufacturer here in Geelong as well, are you?
Not Godfrey Hirst. I mean, they spin their own wool in New Zealand, so they have a spinning operation. But their competitors, more probably boutique, not on the same scale. Because a lot of what we do is we're not at we're a high-end yarn cost. So a lot of what we're doing is really focusing on sort of quite high-end customers.
Not the First aren't too high-end themselves.
No, they have they're really fantastic wool products. But yeah. Building systems, so again for us, like herd is a product, obviously 60% for us of what comes out of the decorticator is herd. So for us, it's like we need to find a market for that. And adoption of people building a house by hand is very slow. So there's not enough volume for us to sustain. So we're really now starting to work with some large construction companies, large home builders, building partnerships to think about how do we start to change the market with building product systems that builders, architects, and everything can specify and use, right? So you can go into a building depot or a Bunnings or wherever it may be and get some panels or get some blocks or bricks, and you know how to use them. And there's a lot of change, as we all know, coming towards the building industry from the carbon footprint perspective. But again, it takes time, it takes energy, and current players are not always interested in making these changes, right? So for us, we're well advanced in our designs, our plans for the purchasing of a robotic block panel making facility. And the next 2 years, we hope we'll have something like that installed, but it takes time to get it here, and it takes time to get the market adapted. Geotextiles is a product we're already up and running with, so we have non-woven line where we're mixing waste wool with hemp into the space. So this is a lot of roadway projects now in New Zealand are being specified for more sustainable and totally biodegradable products, no plastics, etc. It's still hard because we have to compete, but this is a commercial product now. So a lot of landscaping, motorways that use these products, it's really starting to grow. So that's probably one of our biggest commercial sellers right now that we're making and we're selling and we're generating revenue from. Insulation is a product that we're also working quite hard on. And I did talk to a few people over the last day around, when we come out with something, we want to make sure we do have that pure story. So with our brand and our philosophy and our purpose is about environment and sustainability and all of those things. We don't just want to put a polyplastic melt over the hemp and say we're pure, right? So we're working really hard to see if we can find a natural binder or a natural melt product that can actually, create that sort of stiffness in the insulation bed. But again, we have the machine. We have part of the machine to get into insulation, but when we go to market, we want to make sure we have the right story. So that product line is well advanced. And then sort of other product lines that we're working on, we've done up on that motorbike up there, we've developed a yarn with hemp and wool in first stage trials, which makes into a sort of triaxial fabric, which then these companies can add bioresins to create that plastic look on that motorbike. So that's a New Zealand-based business. We've got trials with Surfboard Company down here as well with the same sort of product. So it's a really non-structural sort of biocomposite material. But we're doing a lot of work thinking about totally biocomposites and that value. But that will mean new decortication line. That'll mean a whole new way of processing that we can't do right today. But we're well advanced in the design and in what we need to buy to be able for that to happen. And then you can see some of our carpets and the areas we're working with, particularly because we also manage a large supply chain of merino wool into China. We manage it for some of the global brands. We've got quite extensive yarn development underway now with merino wool and hemp fibre that hopefully will start to push up into some of those global brands. But again, it will take time, different decortication process, different growing process, different retting process. But the research and then the trialling that they need to do to get acceptance from their customers and their product testing, etc., all takes time. So you've got to sort of start and work with the customers and then work the way back. So yeah, that's what we're all about. Switch, and Switch Fibre is one of our sort of taglines and product brands. Really talking to people about switching. Capital, and a lot of people in the room will know, all of this doesn't just come from a few pennies. It takes a lot of money, and it continues to take money. So we've also been looking at building out our capital structure that we need and bringing in strategic partners to do that. So we're in the process of finalising a capital raise for the business, because we actually need now to go quite fast. I mean, this is a very front-loaded business, right? Equipment, people, capability, research, development, partnership. So we actually have to have capital money in the bank to actually be able to continue to do this and to do it on a scale that we can do it quickly, but also do it right. So working through that. So I suppose in summary, and it's not easy to see, but for us, we're 5 years into the journey now, and I'm only really a baby when I hear people have been in it for 30 years here and 25 years here. But as I said, we've been able to assemble the vertical supply chain through 40 years of that sort of grassroots experience and starting as farmers and working in those different segments that pull all of this together. So we've come a long way, I feel, but there's still a long way to go. And I say to people, standing up here today, talking is easy, right? It's when we leave here tomorrow and we've got to continue to execute and make shit happen. It's not easy. So one harvest a year, I talked about that. We only get one crack in New Zealand at the moment to actually harvest hemp, so learnings are slow, right? So again, building on that global alliance and coming here and hearing your stories and your knowledge and your sharing helps us to advance that. Again, it's a chicken and egg scenario. What do you do first? Do you build the market or do you build the plant? And the problem is you can't build the market if you haven't got a product. So front loading that and putting that investment in is huge, to be able to have something to show people to want them to make that change. Not one size fits all. You've got to know where you want to play. And there's no out-of-the-box solution that I've seen, right? It's bloody hard, and we saw those pictures. I've done agro yesterday, and I've been to spend some time with Albert Dunn, and man, that guy's an innovator, right? But he's been doing it for 30 years, so he's found out one size doesn't fit all, and it doesn't. So any of you are thinking about decortication investment, all those sort of things, you won't necessarily get what you expect you're going to get. So you need to do your research, but then you have to be really mindful that you're going to need to adapt it to your growing area, to your setup, and all of those sorts of things. Capital cost, we've talked about, it's significant, but actually it's also significant to get the capability in place, get the team in place, the working capital, the time to market. It always takes longer than you think. So having that capital. What we're finding in New Zealand, market adoption is now our biggest challenge, to getting people to actually make that change or to change where it go, what they use, but also the regulatory approvals, like getting all of your regulatory, all of your processes and everything in place to ensure that happens has been challenging as well. Collaboration is key, and I think these type of events just really highlight that. We don't know everything, but learning together, hearing people's experience, and that's why I'm here. That's why we're here from New Zealand, because we are the only fibre player in New Zealand, and it's a lonely place on your own. But building out this sort of, my view of this global hemp alliance that actually comes together to share and get better quicker is really critical. And I just, last sort of line, it is an exciting time. I think, as you said, people have been doing this for a long time, but I'm, we're really confident that this change is going to happen. It's just a matter of when. And again, events like this just really sort of showcase the knowledge and the passion and the will to want to make this work. And so, I'm honoured to be here today. Happy to take some questions, but I do hope what I've shared with you briefly has given you some insight to what we're doing across the ditch. And thank you for having me here. Thanks.